working group online meeting today, the 26th of July. My name is Dahi and I sit on the National Steerco with Nathan, Max, Alison, who's also on this call, and Riley. And today, the purpose of this meeting is to essentially provide people with some high-level context on the working groups and hopefully give people an idea as to how they can get more involved in the organisation. We have a lot of people who join us and want to volunteer and participate and offer their skills in making Flux happen. And we're trying to do a better job now in presenting the structure as to how people can fit in and contribute in the best way that they see fit. So the meeting today, I have a few slides that will provide some context on the working groups, just some very high level context about the general aims of the working groups, but this is not to be deemed a prescriptive this is not the be-all and end-all of what the working groups are. The working groups will evolve and develop as people on board into them. As mentioned, this session is about giving people the context to know what is happening. Sorry, I'm just going to put some people on mute. As you join the conversation, if possible, if you could put your microphone on mute, that would help. Great, thank you very much. Okay. So once we go through, I'll go through these slides very, very quickly, and then we'll open up for some questions. If you have a question, the best way to do it is if you can either put it into the chat or just say question in the chat, so I know that anyone who wants to ask a question, I'll be able to kind of direct to you. Okay, in terms of what we're going to cover today, we just have some high-level context on the working groups, talk a little bit about how the working groups will integrate into the state branches, and from there we'll just answer questions that people might have and ultimately look to try and link people into the various working groups. And from here, we can start to direct people into Slack channels, into Facebook groups, so that we can get people who are interested in participating into the relevant groups that they want to be part of. So at the moment, we have defined 4 main working groups. We have an awareness working group, engagement, finance, and implementation. The awareness working group is predominantly focused on all things to do with communications, i.e., traditional media, social media, and generating content for our websites, or just anything to do with messaging and communications. The engagement working group is all about the culture of our organization and how we liaise with our members, how we onboard new members and cultivate our members into being active participants and volunteers in the organization. The finance working group is tasked with all things to do with money, and that will be predominantly related to fundraising and compliance around reporting requirements with our various electoral commissions and just all of the financial administration associated with being registered political parties. The implementation working group is addressing all things practical. So that's going to cover administration of our organization, education and outreach, how we get our message. Not only how do we get our message out there, how do we explain and develop our concept and philosophy in a way that makes sense to people, engaging with academia, engaging with people who want to critique and make the idea better. Technology would be related to everything to do with the development of the app and the supporting systems that we would need to implement issue-based direct democracy. And finally, the campaigns working group, or the campaigns project team, which will be tasked with everything relating to running a campaign at a state or federal or even a local level at the relevant time. So there are the various they're the various working groups. Inside of each of those working groups, there's a variety of tasks and skills that are required, and we can. So in terms of, I'll just speak very quickly now as to what the general priorities in the upcoming months for each of the working groups are, and then we can move to some questions. So for the awareness working group, this is the first working group that has been set up, and there's already been a little bit of work developed in this area, but the priorities are essentially define clear messaging and communications for the organization. Now, this might seem like a very obvious thing and something that we should be doing all the time, and we are, but there's always work to do in refining the messaging of what it is we're trying to do so that we can communicate our objectives with various demographics and various groups within society. The second main priority will be organizing our social media activity in a way that can scale all the way from the federal level down to a local level. So at the moment, we tend to manage our social media very centrally by running the main Vulfpeck page and our various state pages. But if we're to do social media properly or more effectively, we will definitely have to look at methods that will bring the operation and engagement of social media right down into the members in the organization. And the third key priority for the awareness working group will be coming up with a high-level marketing strategy that we can use for our election campaigns. So all of these things will tie in together, but it's when election campaigns come around that we'll really get to test just how well we are doing our marketing and engagement and awareness. The engagement working group, the main priorities for the engagement working group at the moment are around onboarding new members. So as we have new members joining the organization, we need to ensure that we're meeting them at the front door, welcoming them in, showing them around, finding out what they're interested in, ensuring that we're able to direct them to the appropriate person within the organization, whether it's getting them to a local meetup, whether it's directing them to a working group and being more involved, or if it's just directing people to some general information so that they can be more informed on what's going on. Just essentially ensuring that we are giving new members who come on board as good an experience as we possibly can that encourages them to stay and encourages participation. So we need to address, as part of the engagement priorities, how we can encourage more members to take active roles within the organization. Now, this conversation, the working groups will form a large part of that, but there's so many different ways that people can participate, and we just need to ensure that we're encouraging that so that people feel empowered to be part of this movement. The third key priority will be around ensuring that we keep our membership numbers growing. A huge part of what it is we're trying to do will ultimately be bringing people into the Flux philosophy and app and ecosystem. And to do that, our membership base will be the best place for us to start that work. So ensuring that we're constantly growing our members and encouraging people to get their friends and acquaintances and colleagues to sign up as they get more involved in the organization. The implementation working group priorities, because the implementation group covers so much, there's too many kind of priorities for me to address as part of this, but primarily it will be about focusing on getting all of our administration in the organization working well, ensuring that we're managing all of our membership databases correctly, our communications, just ensuring that we're running the organization as efficiently and effectively as possible. Then in the education aspect of the implementation working group, the priorities for that are still to be defined, but it's a very broad area. And anybody who's interested in discussing the ideas of flux and issue-based direct democracy, I'd encourage you to participate in the education aspect, because that's something that's going to require a lot of work and will also feed in to an awful lot of the other areas and other working groups. In the technology area, our main priority at the moment is, of course, getting the member app or the user app developed. And that is very much underway. And we encourage anybody with the technical skills, and I would suggest predominantly in the UI UX design at the moment, would be of great importance and usability. So anybody with the technical skills who wants to get involved in helping us develop the app, there's a huge amount of work that can be done in that space. Finally, for election campaigns, the priorities for the election campaign team will essentially be, run a good campaign, get someone elected. But there's a huge amount of work and nuance that goes into working on a campaign. And from me speaking personally, election campaigns are the area that I actually find the most fun and the most energizing, and it's the one that really brings us out onto the street, meeting new people and sharing the idea and the philosophy. And it's the one that really, it really is rewarding. You get that immediate feedback from people as to what it is we're doing, and we face so many challenges. So as election campaign time rolls around, I encourage everybody to reach out to their local group to see how they can get involved in the election campaigns. Finally, the finance working group. The priorities for the finance working group are twofold. They're in the wrong order at the moment, actually. The main priority of the finance working group will be to ensure that we are always compliant with any legal requirements and reporting requirements that we have as registered political parties. But critically, the finance working group will be responsible for fundraising. And there are countless ways that we can raise funds for this organization. And it's one of the areas that we really want to focus on in the coming year. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who have those skills in terms of devising fundraising campaigns and encouraging people to donate. And we really want those people to get involved. Put your hand up and say, yes, I know how to get people to take money, reach into their pocket, take the money out of their pocket and put it into a basket. It's a very specific and critical skill set, and I encourage people to participate if they can with that. So before I go to questions, I'll just say where if someone was to, I'm just going to mute somebody here. Excuse me. Great. Okay. Where to from here? The best way to get involved, I always suggest, is attending a local meeting if there is one, because that gives you an opportunity to meet the other people who are involved in the organization, get a feeling for who they are, what it is they're doing. But I recognize that attending a local meeting is not possible for everybody. So if that's the case, we do try to do some things via Slack, and we have a number of channels set up on Slack to try and coordinate these various working groups. You can see them listed there. Once you're in and you're part of the conversation, we do try to. There will be some centralized guidance and structure on what it is we're doing, and we will work together to identify and assign all the priorities. But from there, the onus is on you to find something that you want to do, and then just to do it. And hopefully that creates a positive feedback reinforcement loop where you do something good, you feel good about it, you want to do more good things, and before we know it, we have succeeded in all of our objectives and we have to go back to the whiteboard and start again. So that's essentially everything that I want to cover today. I'll open up now to some questions. So I'll just go through the chat first to address the questions that have been raised in there. So question about what working groups have been set up already, what's up and running. At the moment, the only working group that is officially up and running is the awareness working group. But there is work going on in relation to all of the things that have been mentioned. It's just that we haven't officially defined the other working groups, i.e. engagement, finance and implementation. We know some of the people who will be looking to get involved in that area, and there is some work going on, but they haven't been officially kicked off as of yet, just the awareness in relation to comms. But it's still in a very early phase, and so there's, it's not like anything has been developed to a point where there's no point in, if you like, getting involved at the early stages and throwing ideas around. Everything is still very much in that early phase, so there's so much scope for anybody to get involved.
Dahi, can you get back to that slide which has all the working groups and what they do?
This one?
Yeah, I think so.
So over the next few weeks, we will look to step out in more detail the various working groups. So next week, ideally, we will look to go through in a little bit more detail what the awareness working group has been working on up to now, where it intends to go in the next 3, 6, 12 months. And similarly for the other working groups in the other weeks as well. And by recording each of these meetings, we'll just have this information up online, so new people coming in will be able to check out these 4 or 5 half-hour videos that give the context on the working groups. Or alternatively, people can just feel free to dive in and get involved as we set up these groups and put a bit more structure and regular cadence to the meetings and communications. It will be much easier for people to get involved. At the moment, because we haven't actually officially started anything, it's difficult to know where do you get involved, how do you get involved. Are there any other questions? Any other questions from the group? No.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay.
Sorry, Dahi. I was just asking, is the group that Nathan had over the weekend the one that's doing the vlogs? Is that actually the awareness group, or is that just something on the side?
Riley, I think at the moment that's something that's on the side, but in time, as we get more structured, that is something that would dovetail into the awareness working group, because it is essentially a comms exercise.
Okay.
But
all right. So you're in contact. I mean, I should be in contact. I've tried to get in contact with the current awareness group, and I haven't been able to get through to anybody. But are they going to be on this call next week?
To be confirmed. I would hope to get Craig on for next week, so to get him to speak to some of the content and strategy that has been developed for the awareness working group. But that's to be confirmed.
Yeah, I can probably speak to the awareness group a tiny bit. I've been in contact with each of them over the last weeks, and they are definitely working towards stuff. I think that last slide with the fluxvolunteers.slack.com is the way to jump on those, and every now and then you'll see stuff pop up. Have a little read, look at the links. And this is really, I guess, these meetings to me are kind of the taster for how we can actually start getting involved, which is really well reflected in that last slide that Dahi put up. Just trying to start the ball rolling a bit. Yeah, that one. So join the working groups, and as things start to happen, and obviously we're all happy to chat with people individually over time if you would like to.
Yeah. Joanne, yes, please.
A really quick question. From what I know about holacracy, I say holacracy and everyone else says holacracy, sorry about that. From what I know about it, the ideal sort of model would include the main sort of committee that yourself and Alison are on, having one member in each of those groups so that then you've got that feedback back and forth. Is there a structure in the main group that says, I don't know, Alison's involved in the awareness group or you're involved in the engagement group or whatever? Is there like a key person in that main group that is connected to those to one or more other groups as a role?
Great point. So in terms of us implementing the holacracy model, I think using the term holacracy at the moment is really just about getting people comfortable with the idea of us pushing the responsibility to take action down into the organization as much as possible. And for us to fully implement a full holacracy model, that will take time, and it will take, we'll have to bring in people with the specific skills and knowledge of holacracy to do it properly. But to your point, yes, we will definitely look to have people liaising between the working groups and the steerco, and also the state branches. The specific people who will be doing those roles is still to be determined. It will be as people kind of get involved and put their hands up. But from a steerco perspective, yes, we will be actively involved in, I suppose, guiding the working groups in the initial phases until we have, people who are able to, what we would call the lead links, or people who are able to take the working groups and make it happen and do the work and report back and feed it, liaise with us independently. But for now, steerco will have an active involvement.
I mean, I would think that the steerco definitely doesn't want to be the person who ends up leading those other groups, but to have those liaisons sounds really critical to me, because otherwise the steerco will end up floating around in a completely different universe to those different groups, which will end up floating around in completely different universes to each other. So, look, I completely support holacracy movements. I've got the book, I've read it, and I've done community development for years. Yeah, I got it. It's in my work office, not in my home. But that's the thing that I was wondering, was because that's probably our first hub, is to try and connect these working groups back to the steerco. That doesn't mean they're the person that does the work, but they're the link.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, for now, steerco, there will always be someone, there would generally always be someone from steerco at a working group meeting, or somebody at a working group tasked with kind of feeding back the information. But it's definitely something that we will look to formalize and put more structure around as it develops. Great. Any more questions from the group?
Sorry, Dahi, I just had another comment. I was thinking that I know that we're doing the awareness working group. I've got the state branches meeting coming up early August. And so in terms of engagement, we're planning on trying to draw more people into these Thursday discussions. I suppose it's possible to liaise with you and to put something together for not next meeting, but the following meeting, in terms of getting an engagement working group together.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think as this develops, we'll need to set up the regular cadence of the meetings of the working groups, so that as people come into these sorts of meetings, we can just direct them off to the awareness working group actual online meeting. Yeah, absolutely right. That's something we'll speak about that offline. But yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. All right, Joanne. I should I'll give you. I'll flick my email address down here, and then you can get in contact with me, and we can have a chat.
Great. Yeah. Great. So on that, I'll just look to close out this call. For anybody who is watching this on YouTube, again, I would encourage you to join our Slack channel. The information is there. It will also be in the description box below. And you can also contact us, send us an email. You can email leadership@voteflux.org if you want to get involved. But the working groups on Slack will probably be where most of the conversation happens. Also, feel free to make contact with us on Facebook or just stop. If you see us on the street, stop us on the street. But if you want to get involved, we encourage you, reach out, get involved. And yeah, thank you all for taking the time. We have people attending today from all over Australia and the Netherlands as well. So we're truly international. Okay, thank you very much.